Hi, welcome to our weekly Mokum Instagram live session coming from our Sydney studio. I'm Stephanie Moffat, Mokum Design Director.
Hi, and I'm Annie Moyer, Mokum's Product Coordinator. Thank you so much for joining us today. The topic for today's session is going to be really comparing and delving into what we term to be a European colour palette versus an Australasian colour palette, which is very much influenced by the lifestyle and the landscapes of Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah, absolutely. Where you grow up and where you live really shapes your point of view. And Annie and I are both New Zealanders. We're both country girls. I grew up in the North Island.
I grew up in the South Island of New Zealand.
And we now live in Australia. And so that mix of cultures really, and that mix of lifestyle really impacts on our design process and then how we colour. And it is very much a cultural mix looking to meet the needs of both Australia and New Zealand. And we also come from countries that both have an inherent love of modernism, and very much that simplicity drives a much more neutral, much more earthy and organic colour palette.
Yeah, absolutely. Our unique lifestyle, our beautiful landscapes, and of course our mild weather definitely has an impact on our architectural design in Australia and New Zealand as well. In this part of the world, it's common to find homes with high ceilings, large windows and a lot of glass, letting in an abundance of natural light. And I know it's something we talk to a lot, that the light in this part of the world is very clean and very clear, but it is such a true reality that we live in, and it has a direct impact on the way that we see and the way that we interpret colour. The light almost amplifies it and makes colours look stronger than they are. So a colour palette that would say look totally beautiful in the Northern Hemisphere, a European colour palette, to some people in this part of the world, it can be perceived as being too saturated or too bright. So with that in mind, we compensate for this by greying off our colours and creating palettes with more sort of subdued, pared back and almost dusty colours.
So to illustrate this, we've created these boards here, and this is really a snapshot of a European colour palette. And you can see that there is a real mix of colours from neutral to bolder shades, varying from mineral, classic, into these more saturated, brighter colourways. Examples of these colours, which we don't often include in our palette, are bold, sharp fuchsia, orange, brighter reds, and sharp cobalt blues, and cleaner, bolder emerald greens. And the reason we don't is these more saturated colours don't tend to sell in large volume in Australia and New Zealand, primarily as volume is driven by window treatments and sofa orders, and these are generally much more neutral toned or more earthy.
So you can see with this European palette, the decorative colours are very clean and very fresh, and the neutrals are almost muted. And as a visual comparison, over here we have a Mokum Australasian colour palette, where it's really the complete opposite, where the decorative shades take on a little bit more of a muted tone, and the colour and the neutrals, are very fresh and very clean. It's really important to us in this part of the world to achieve fresh neutrals. Clean white and off-whites are really important, and grey-based linen tones, as well as getting these clean grey-based mid-tones. Believe it or not, grey is always the hardest colour for us to get right and to develop in the studio. It's really hard to achieve a grey that doesn't tone sort of a hue of pink or purple, or even tone slightly blue or green. And in Australia and New Zealand, we are so inspired by our beautiful landscapes, and we endeavour to create textiles with colourways that are borrowed from natural landscapes. In New Zealand, with its beautiful mountainous range and rivers and beautiful forests, blues, greens and grey-based mineral tones are so important. And in Australia, with its gorgeous coastlines and Australian native bush, eucalyptus and Banksia leaf greens are prevalent, as well as warmer tones, more desert tones like clay and terracotta. And this concept of bringing the outdoors in and colours borrowed from Mother Nature is a way of creating sort of a relaxing, grounding atmosphere in your home, and sort of this sense of sanctuary.
So it's also important to note that our colour choices and the depth and the intensity of those colours are also often dependent on the construction or the type of textile. In some constructions, particularly velvets, will use much more intense deeper shades than say a linen base. And that is because that iridescent pile adds often subtlety, and it does subdue the colour. And you can see here on these beautiful velvet colours the way the light rebounds off it, and that really changes from different angles.
Absolutely, and in comparison to, say, a linen construction, where its natural patina has almost got this chalky, soft aesthetic, and it really lends itself to more muted, chalky colour palettes. And this is a beautiful example, Mokum Satori Stonewash. You can see here it still has a beautiful amount of decorative tone in it, but they take on a softer, more pared back aesthetic. And as well as the construction, a textile's end use also significantly impacts on our colour development and our final colour selection. A drapery palette, for example, will tend to be softer, more neutral based, and very much reflective of popular paint choices. You can imagine one block colour at the window in abundance can be quite intense. And in comparison to an upholstery palette, which tends to span a wider variety of stronger, bolder, more sort of accessory colours.
So we just wanted to end by saying that we really believe all colours are beautiful when used in the right space, and this isn't about good design or bad design. It's simply about colours that we believe, and for the Mokum brand, suit our Australian and New Zealand lifestyle and will sell on volume within our Australian and New Zealand lifestyle. So we wanted to thank you for joining us today, and we hope you'll join us next week when we go from the evolution of a digital print design. We take it from initial concept through to how we develop and print it.
So get a behind the scenes look.
Yeah, absolutely. So please stay safe. Kia kaha.
Thank you. Bye.